Hello, welcome back to the Leading Yourself podcast. Today we have another Leading Your Career episode with an amazing guest. Today with us is Andy Storch. He's the author, consultant, coach, speaker, facilitator. He specializes in helping his clients turn strategy into action and people doing the best work for their lives. His purpose is to love and support his family and to impact the world by inspiring people to take control of their lives with intention and their careers. He's the host of two podcasts and the author of the book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life. Welcome to the podcast, Andy. Such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, Carolina, thank you so much for having me, for that warm welcome. And the pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, I can't wait for this conversation. I was telling you before the recording, I've already recommended your book to several people. And I thought, you know what? What a great platform to leverage the podcast to get this message to more people that are struggling to figure out what to do next. And before we jump into all of these exciting topics, can you share a little bit about your background? I know I mentioned you are a podcaster, you're an author, you're a coach, but can you expand a little bit on your story and what took you to write this book?
Right. Well, yeah, I'm happy to. And we can go anywhere with it if you like. But I had a long and winding career, up and down, lots of different things. I tried a lot of things, especially in my 20s and 30s, trying to figure out what did I want to do? What was I supposed to be doing? And struggled quite a bit, to be honest. For a lot of time, I think in my 20s, I was really drifting through my career. I was having fun, but I wasn't really making progress towards any type of career goals. Never really found myself in a career that I truly enjoyed until I stumbled upon a career in consulting. Because of a relationship, a friend of mine got me a job with a really great consulting company called BTS, and it allowed me to start creating workshops. We created business simulations, and I got to travel all over the world, facilitating these workshops, teaching leaders and executives about things like leadership, finance, strategy, business acumen, stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun, very fulfilling. And I learned a lot about business and about leadership and from, what success looked like in different organizations. And I also observed many people kind of drifting through their careers, operating in reaction mode, waiting for other people to tell them what to do, whether it be their boss or their parents or others. They might be moving up the corporate ladder, right? Doesn't mean they're not quote unquote successful, but not necessarily happy. And I think a lot of times people go through those motions and they wake up at 50 or 60 or whatever and asking, what the heck have I been doing for the last 20, 30 years? And I knew there must be a better way. And along the way, I also discovered the world of personal development. I know you're really big into personal growth, personal development, whatever you want to call it. In 2016, I started getting really into personal development after I heard a podcast and read a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And that one was really changed my life. It was a game changer for me. I started following his practice of having a morning routine and starting the day with things like meditation, visualization, affirmations, reading, writing, and exercise. And some of these things I had been kind of doing, but really, putting it all together in this morning routine was really impactful for me. And I started doing a lot of self-development, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of inner work, a lot of listening to podcasts and reading books and learning everything I could to figure out, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go with my career? And what I gravitated towards was the idea of entrepreneurship, that I really wanted to be running my own business. I felt like so compelled, pulled towards that value of freedom. And so I did everything I could to make that a reality for me. I left the consulting company I was with to go become an independent consultant with a smaller group. And then eventually in 2020, I went out completely on my own. And what I realized as I was going through all of this, and I started writing the book in 2020, and I published it in November 2020, was that I was doing all this work to create the career and the life that I love and that I wanted. Right. And I learned so much along the way. I knew there was a lot that I could be sharing with others to help other people. Now, for me, it was about moving towards entrepreneurship because that's what was really I was drawn towards. But I've had many conversations with clients and people, around the world. And I know that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, right? Most people will tell me, I have no interest in doing that. I like being part of a bigger group or an organization, or having, the paycheck I can rely on, whatever the reason is, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what all people do want is a happy and fulfilling career, right? They want to be happy. They want to feel like the work they're doing is meaningful, that they're contributing, that they're doing work that takes advantage of their strengths. And so I wanted to create a guidebook for them. I wanted to create something that would help people find that. And that's why I published my book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life. And I've been on a mission since then to teach and inspire more people to take ownership of their careers.
That's amazing. And I can relate so much about your personal development journey. For me, it all started with the morning routine. For those that have been listening to our podcast for a while, it was episode 2 of the podcast was morning routine, because it's been such a game changer for me.
Yes.
And I love that book, that Miracle Morning, also really, really inspiring. So I can relate a lot with, I'm on the corporate side of in my career, but I can relate a lot with your purpose and your mission, right? I work in talent management.
Yeah.
And the reason why I decided to focus on talent management and development is precisely that, how to help people perform to their best and grow to their fullest potential in a way that feels fulfilling. I think a lot of times we use successful and fulfilled as synonyms.
Right.
And a lot of times what happens is we're chasing success. And I think you're so right. One day we wake up and we're like, okay, yeah, I might be successful. I might be making a lot of money, having the title that I always wanted, but I feel empty. I feel something is missing. So I love that.
I think the problem is that most people, first of all, don't realize that success is a very personal and relative term, right? Like your idea of success might be different from my idea of success. But also most people think of success, quote, success as, like you said, money, title, or some type of arbitrary goal, like, oh, that person's so successful because they have this big house, or they have a boat, or, they have a vice president title, or whatever it may be. What if success is just happiness? Like, what if that's all it is? And it sounds so simple, but how many people do you know that are like truly happy with their life? Fulfilling career, home life is pretty good. They have fun on the weekends, whatever it is. Like, to truly be happy. And I interviewed a billionaire once, and I asked him about success, and I loved his definition was something to the effect of, success is just being satisfied with your life and living with no regrets, essentially. And we're going to have some regrets sometimes. I have a few, right? But really being able to live life that way and say that I'm happy and I love my life. And you can be very happy making, $50,000 a year or more or less, right? It doesn't matter what the salary is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that happiness is kind of up to them. But the career is a big factor, a very aspect to that, right? Like, finding work that you love doing is a big driver, because, as people always say, we spend, however many hours it is, most people spend like 50 hours a week working, and you add that up throughout the year, it's a lot of time that you're working. So it'd be nice if you could enjoy some of it.
Yeah, I tell that to everyone in my team always, is like, we spend more time at work than we spend with our families or doing anything else.
Yeah.
So we should wake up every morning excited about what we're doing and the impact we're making, doing something that lights us up, that energizes us. So I think we're so alike in the way we see this. So here's my first question for you, Andy, and you kind of answered it, but I'm going to ask it more directly. What does owning your career mean?
So owning your career means taking full responsibility for your career, for your life, for your time, for your actions. And, that means that you're not a victim. You don't blame other people. You don't wait for other people. Don't rely on other people. Certainly, if you work in an organization, you can't like get everything you want without getting some help from your boss and other people, right? Just as I even working on my own, like, unless I have clients that are willing to work with me, I'm pretty much out of business and I got to go do something else, right? Like, we can't do everything on our own. And in fact, I have a whole chapter in my book about the importance of asking for and getting help. Like, humans are social creatures. We are meant to be supporting each other, collaborating, working with others. We need that. And I think that's really important. However, I also think it's really important that we take personal responsibility for everything going on in our career and our life. And that means that if you're in a situation that you're not that happy about, you stop waiting for other people to fix it for you. You take full responsibility and say, well, I got myself to where I am today, and I'm going to figure out what it is that I truly want to do. And I'm going to put a plan in place for that. And I'm not going to wait for other people to tell me what to do or give me permission. I'm going to start taking action on that. And I might need help, right? I might need to talk to my manager, find a mentor, hire a coach, just read more books, whatever it may be, and understand that things are not going to be perfect. Things are not going to work out perfectly. They're not going to go all the way that I want, right? You might go out for that promotion and not get it. But there's a big difference between saying, oh, I didn't get it because my manager's a jerk or they didn't recognize the work that I was doing, versus asking, well, I wonder why Sally got that promotion and I didn't. I wonder if there's more I could do. What if there's things I could learn from her? And I wonder if I can take more responsibility and take more action, next time. And that's not to say there aren't situations that are out of your control. There's still tons of unconscious bias going on, right, in the world, and performance reviews that are not totally fair to people. We need to evaluate that and understand that as well, and to see, is it something that, if it's not serving me, is it something that I can change, that I can fix? And if it's not, then maybe I need to go somewhere else and try doing something else, right? Not sit there and wallow in the, woe is me, whatever it may be. Every situation is different. But at the end of the day, it's about taking personal responsibility and asking, what can I do to improve my situation?
Yeah, I love that. And you see me smiling because I'm like, I think the same way, right? I always
Yeah.
say you have to design, build, and drive your career. I mean, I work with an automotive for 18 years, so I think that's very ingrained on my brain, but
Yeah.
design, build, and drive your career. And I think just that switching approach that you're talking about can make a huge difference on the level of fulfillment, right? When you're always blaming others because you're not getting where you want to go,
Yeah.
you tend to leave in a state of frustration and a state of being unseen, and it's being bitter, right? And when you're taking the driver's seat, even if you don't get there,
Mm-hmm.
it just prompts different questions that you ask yourself, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you leave in this momentum of progress. And I always say that where we're talking about happiness, right, and fulfillment and success and all these terms, I'm like, it's not about the destination. It's about that sense of making progress that makes you feel fulfilled along the way. So
Mm-hmm.
I I can't agree more with
Yes.
what you're saying. Now, you mentioned you have a whole section in your book talking about asking for help. And I refer, the term that I use is, who is in your success squad? Who are the
Mm,
people that you surround yourself, that you look for support?
I
Can
like
you
that.
talk a little bit about why it's important to ask for help, and
Yeah.
who can you reach out to ask for help when it comes to your career?
Sure. Yeah. I like that success squad. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, humans are social creatures. If you study human history at all, you can see that for 98% of our history, people lived in tribes, right? And you really could not survive on your own. You had to be with other people to help protect you and feed you and that sort of thing. Everybody had different jobs. It's only in the last, couple hundred years where people have really been able to live on their own. And in the last probably 5 years or less, where you could truly live in a house on your own and never see anyone, because you could order food on Uber Eats and work from home and like never leave your house, right? I hope your listeners are leaving their houses, but you could if you really wanted to. And the point I'm trying to make is that you look at our evolution, and humans are social creatures. I think we're meant to collaborate and support each other. And most people are not able to achieve the success they want by doing things on their own. And I don't think we are meant to. I don't think we need to, or we should, right? I think it's important to ask for and find help. If you look at the most successful people you admire, most of them had some type of help along the way. For me, almost all of the things I've achieved has been because I was willing to go out and look for help and find mentors, hire coaches, join mastermind groups, all the things that I've done. And sometimes those mentors can be from afar, right? Reading books and listening to podcasts. There are authors and experts that I follow who are very helpful to me, who, don't even know who I am, right? Because I follow their content, and that's why they put that stuff out there, right? But also finding a mentor, working with your manager, finding friends and colleagues who are willing to support you in the things that you're doing can be extremely helpful. And if you have a goal, let's say your goal is to get promoted, or you want to run a marathon, or do a triathlon, or improve your relationship, or whatever it may be, it's always helpful to go through that with someone else, right? Find an accountability partner, a friend, a colleague who is doing something similar, and you can check in with each other and really push each other and root for each other and celebrate each other. You mentioned kind of that question of like, who are you surrounding yourself with? And are you surrounding yourself with is always an important question. Are you surrounding yourself with supportive people who are rooting for you and holding you accountable and pushing you? Or are you surrounding yourself with negative people who don't believe in you and are trying to hold you back? And it makes a huge, huge difference. Jim Rohn famously said that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Tony Robbins says that we rise to the level of the peers that we surround ourselves with. And I find it very, very true. So I continue to try to surround myself with people who are ambitious, who are supportive, who are quote unquote successful, and that I think that they're living life the right way, the way I want to live my life, and are teaching and helpful and supportive and collaborative. And I'm always trying to learn from them and also support them as well, like find ways to root for them and support them. I'm a big fan of operating with an abundant mindset. And with that comes the belief that there is no shortage of money, love, or success in the world. And so we can root for the success of others, and it doesn't take anything away from us. And I think the more we do that, call it karma or anything else, the more it's going to come back to us. So packing some other lessons in there, but these are things that have helped me become more successful in my mind. And what I see is really helpful to other people as well.
As we keep talking, my head is spinning in how much alike we think. All the things that you mentioned are things that I'm constantly talking about. And I feel the same way. I think that, if I see myself, and a lot of people would look at me and say, I've been very successful in my career, which I think it's true. And I'm fulfilled at the same time, because I've been very intentional about building my career the way it is. But I would not be where I am if it wasn't because of all the people that along the way were helping me, the mentors, giving advice and learning from their experiences, coaches that have pushed me outside of my comfort zone, accountability partners you mentioned that have helped me get through, in those times that you're procrastinating and you're kind of giving up, like they push you to continue. I always say that we are better at keeping promises to others that we are to ourselves. So
it's true. Yeah.
Sharing your commitments with others and checking in with others on the progress you're making can go long ways, more than trying to do it by yourself, because we tend to break promises with ourselves before we do with anybody else.
It's so true. If anybody's wondering about that, just ask yourself the question, if I committed to going to the gym every morning at 6 a.m. on my own, how often would you get there? And if I told you that I was going to be there waiting for you every morning at 6 a.m. because we agreed to meet up to work out together, how likely are you going to be there? You're more likely to be there when you know you have a buddy waiting for you, because you don't want to let them down.
Exactly. And then the other figure that has been critical for me, and I would love to hear your take on this one, is sponsors. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that I've had a lot of sponsors in my career. Like, I never call them sponsors. I never searched for them. They found me, and they found something in me that tell them that I was capable, that I had potential, and they advocated for me along the way. They opened doors for me. And I always say the difference for me between a mentor and a sponsor, right? You choose your mentors, your sponsors choose you. The mentor is kind of a guide. The sponsor is kind of it's kind of like a sponsor, right?
Right.
So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Hmm. Well, first of all, I will say, like, going back to the mentors and getting help. If you read my book, and I hope people will, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, it's available on Amazon. But if you read the book, you'll see that throughout the book, I credit all of the people I learned from, all the books that I read, the mentors that I've had. I do not try to pretend that I made this stuff on my own, right? This is all stuff that has been around and I've learned from other people. And I always want to give credit to those people. And I hope that anyone listening will think about the people that have helped them, along their journey, and show gratitude towards them. The whole sponsor idea is something that I haven't really thought about that much. I've had many mentors. I've had lots of friends who've been on this journey with me and helped me a lot. I don't know if I've had a sponsor per se, but I do know that I've had a lot of friends who have opened doors for me, who have gone out of their way to help me, just as I do for them. And I hadn't thought of it in a sponsorship capacity. That might be more of a, corporate type thing, but it's something I'll have to think about. You stumped me.
Yeah. Um, as I said, I came through this thought recently when someone came to me and asked me, would you be my sponsor? I
Hmm.
had to stop for a second and I'm like, wait a minute, what does that even mean? Right.
Yeah.
And I had
Yeah.
to reflect on my own career, granted on the corporate world, on have I had sponsors? Because I never
Hmm.
called them sponsors, right? But I
Yeah.
did. So this concept is something that I know a lot of companies are trying to start more programs around
Yeah. Mentorship,
sponsorship,
sponsorship programs, things like that.
especially around DEI
Yep.
and all this space. So
Yeah.
yeah, but definitely asking for help is a huge piece of owning your career. Doesn't mean that you have to do it by your own, but
Yeah.
it means that you take the responsibility and you're also vulnerable and humble to
Mm.
reach out for the help that you need to
Yeah.
take you there.
Right. I think it's important. I use this metaphor in my book, and I learned it from another friend. I think I originally heard it from my friend Larry Hagner at a conference. This idea of thinking of us climbing a mountain, and you think you're climbing that mountain towards the peak, whatever that might be. And there are always going to be people ahead of you who have like figured things out. They're older, they're wiser, they're whatever it is, they've done the thing. And there are always going to be people behind you, no matter where you are, who are still trying to figure things out. And while it's important to be willing to ask for help from others, it's also just as important, if not more important, to reach
Mhm.
your hand back down, right? And look for ways to help others because, call it karma or whatever you want to call it. I believe that the more you put out into the world, the more kindness and generosity, and the more you help others, the more it's going to come back to you. And I think I'm getting help all the time from people, and it seems to come to me. And I always know when I think about it, it's because I've spent so much time helping others. And when I say like helping others, it's very important to remember that when you go to help others, do favors for others, whatever it may be, that you always do it with no expectations, right? You're not waiting for someone else to return the favor. Oh, I helped this guy, made an intro for this guy, and he didn't do anything for me. It's not about that person, right? It's about what you put out into the world and the amount of time you spend helping others, and just knowing that it's going to come back to you in some way or another, right? So I think it's really important to be thinking about that no matter where you are, even if you're in college, right? And you're still trying to figure things out. There are kids in high school who don't even like know how to get into college, right? And you can go help them, right? So there's always people behind you can help. And then of course you want to be willing to help others. And one more thing I would add on that, because I think it's really important, is that sometimes we don't reach out and ask people for help because we're afraid, we don't want to bother them, we don't want to put them out, and we feel like, oh, we should be able to do this on our own. It would really be bothering to them, to ask them for help. But when you think about when other people ask you for help, when you help others, most people love it, right? Like, I love helping others. I
Yeah.
can tell by looking at your face that you do is right. So sometimes I almost tell people, think of it like you're doing people a favor sometimes when you ask them to help you, especially using whatever expertise, knowledge they have. I love when people ask me for help, in certain areas within reason, right? But it makes me feel good to be able to help others, and most people feel the same way.
Yeah, I can agree more with that. I think one is the sense of paying it forward for me
Mm,
has been huge in my career. Like one of the parts that I love more about my job is being able to mentor others.
Yeah.
When someone comes to me and asks, would you be my mentor? Like they make my day, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't see
It's
it
an honor.
as more work. I see it as an honor. I see it as, I love to do that. And I think I love your analogy because I think it's so true. I think I always like to tell people is like, whether you know it or not, people are watching. Like
Mm,
people are watching what you're doing, how you're showing up. So if that is the case, which I think it is, why not being intentional about showing up as the best version of you and showing up in a way that you're able to inspire others?
mm,
And when you think about that, for me personally, when I think about that, and I'm trying to show up in any place in life, right, and I think, oh, someone is watching me, it just helps me be more intentional
hmm.
about how I show up so I can be of a positive influence to other people around me.
Yeah, and that leads into, I have a chapter in my book about the importance of building your personal brand, which is, essentially nothing more than your
That's where I
reputation.
was heading.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, I'm sorry for stealing your transition.
No, go ahead.
No, go, please. What did you want to ask?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that reading your book, again, another point where we are so in sync, right? I think we all have a brand, whether
Mm-hmm.
you know it or not.
Yep.
So likewise, if you're going to have a brand one way or another, be intentional about building your brand.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you, first of all, can you expand on this idea?
Sure.
And second of all, if you want to be intentional about building your brand, how you go about it?
Yeah. So your personal brand or professional brand, whatever you want to call it, right, is essentially nothing more than your reputation. It's what people think and say about you, whether you're around or you're not, right? And especially when you're not in the room. And when you think about it, and when you're going out for a job or a promotion or trying to get on a project team at work, whatever it may be, when the people make that decision, usually you're not in the room, and it's going to come down to, maybe in some perfect world, it's your skills and experience, but really it's going to be about your brand too. What do they think about you? Do they want to work with you? And everybody has a brand, right? Everybody has a reputation, whether you do anything about it or not. So I always think that it's worth being intentional about that brand, being mindful about your brand. And it doesn't mean I ever want to advocate for anybody being fake. I'm a big advocate of authenticity, being yourself, but you can also be intentional and mindful about how you're showing up in the world. And the ways that you impact that brand, especially at work, is how you show up, how you interact with other people, how well you collaborate, right? The type of work that you do, how hard you work, the projects you take on. And really a lot of it is how you interact with people, how you treat other people, right? Are you collaborative? Are you kind? Are you supportive? Or are you, I don't know, gruff and angry and, off-putting, whatever the words are, can make a big difference. Do you act with integrity? Do you follow through on the things that you said you were going to do? Are you reliable? And are you helping other people with their jobs? Or are you just taking care of yourself? These all impact your brand and your reputation and what people think about you. And every little action, every little interaction is something that's going to impact that brand. Like they're making a judgment and they're kind of filing it away in their brains. And so I always just try to be mindful, intentional about how I'm showing up in every interaction. When I'm getting on Zoom with a client, when I'm doing a podcast interview like this, when I'm sending an email, is what will people think of me when they see me, when they interact with me, when they read this email, this post, whatever it may be. And is it in alignment with the things that I want to stand for, like showing up with energy and being kind and supportive and happy, and energetic and motivational and inspiring and all the things that I want to be? Is it in alignment with that, or is it something else, right? And so a lot of it is how you show up and how you interact with other people, treat other people. And then there's the whole online world as well, where you can start to build a brand using social media like LinkedIn, either by posting content, right? Or commenting on other people's content, sharing content. Are you supporting other people that you care about? Like they notice those things, right? Are you commenting on their posts? Just spending a little bit of time there every day can make a difference. So I just, you don't have to like spend all your time thinking about it. but it's one of those things that I always recommend you just kind of file into the back of your head, so that every time you interact with somebody, you walk into a meeting or interaction or take a phone call or even send an email, you ask yourself, am I showing up in alignment with my brand? And what are people going to think of me after this? Don't get obsessed with that, right? But like, what are people going to think? Are they going to enjoy interacting with me or are they not? Right. And be yourself, but also be mindful about how other people may be reacting to how you're acting.
Yeah. And I think I am the same way. Especially before I have an important meeting or one-on-one with my team or something like that, I take 2 minutes just to ask these questions to myself, like,
Mm,
how do I want to show up? What is my intention in this meeting? And that is really helpful because one thing that I found is that we live in a world that we're so fast paced and we're so busy and we're jumping to one thing to another, that a
hmm.
lot of times we let our emotions and our immediate reaction to things to take to bring not the best in us. And a lot of times it's just a matter of slowing down, and it only takes a minute or two, right? It's not like, as you said, you're constantly obsessing about this, but it's just taking a minute to pause and ask yourself some of these questions. I always say, the quality of your questions determine the quality of your actions, and
Mm.
therefore the quality of your life. But I think these are such powerful questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Curiosity is so important
Yes.
when it comes to networking, which we didn't specifically talk about, but building your brand, just being curious and asking people questions before you make assumptions, which are like the number one thing that get people in trouble all the time with others, right? Is making assumptions. But being very curious, like you said, asking good questions, which leads to more information and hopefully ways to support other people and impacts your brand.
Yes. Another thing that you talk in your book is, I'm going to read a quote from your book that it says, the mistake many people and companies make is that either they don't take time to prioritize or they call everything a priority. And I think this is such, it is so common, right? Across
Yeah.
the board. And a lot of times, what I find in interacting with people about their careers is that everything else is a priority over their careers, is like
Mm,
all the fires, all the
hmm.
things, right? And they prioritize everything else, and then their careers ends up being at the bottom of that
Yeah.
list. When it comes to owning your career,
Yeah.
how do you identify what are the things that matter most, and how do you prioritize
That's $1 million question right there,
them?
up there with finding your purpose, right? So you're absolutely right. Like they say, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority, right? And most people don't have priorities. They don't spend time on the important things. They're in reaction mode, right? They're reacting to all the things that are coming their way. And that's not unusual. In fact, we have so many things to react to on a daily basis. Think about all your emails coming in, text messages, social media notifications, phone calls, requests from your boss, from your spouse, from your kids, like you name it. Like there's stuff coming in all the time, and we can spend most of our time reacting to these things. But we've got to recognize what's most important for us to get done and making sure that we're spending time on that. And the way we figure that out is by taking time away from those things. And I believe the foundation of owning your career is self-reflection and self-awareness, right? So it's starting with sitting down with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and a notebook in a quiet space where nobody's going to bother you for at least 30 minutes or more, and starting to reflect on your career and your life, where you are now, how you got there, what do you like about it, what do you not like about it, what are your strengths and weaknesses, what do you want to do more of, what energizes you, what are your values, what are the things that you truly care about, what type of work would you like to be doing in the future, and then what's your vision for where you want to get to in your career, and how are you going to get there, putting a real plan in place and starting to set some real specific goals. I'm a big fan of SMART goals, so specific, measurable, actionable, relative, time bound. Setting a couple SMART goals about, okay, I want to get to vice president of talent management, or I want to become a director of marketing, or I want to move into HR, whatever your goal is. There's no bad ones, right? But getting specific about that and the timeline you want to do it in, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get help? And then, within your role, maybe you have some projects that you want to work on. And the challenge for a lot of people is they get lost in the busy work, like we talked about. In the book, I mentioned something that I think Stephen Covey referenced in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that actually came from President Dwight D. Eisenhower in the 50s, called the Eisenhower Matrix, which is essentially on, one axis, you have the level of importance for work. And on the other axis, the x-axis, you have the level of urgency. And, what they both talk about is that most people spend all their time in the high urgent category, even if it's unimportant work. And the important stuff, important urgent gets done, but the important non-urgent work rarely gets time, right? And that includes things like reading, learning, networking, your health, right? These are things that like no one's going to be over your shoulder telling you like, hey, you need to read a book, or you need to go to the gym, or you need to get enough sleep, or you need to make sure that you're learning, right? These are things we have to make time for, right? And so that's where we either need to like put them in our schedules. We'd either develop a habit like you have with the morning routine, right? Or we need to, build them in as part of the work that we're doing. And something I do on a regular basis is I constantly ask myself the question, is how I'm spending my time right now, or generally, a good use? Is it serving me and helping me move towards my goals, or is it not? Right. And it's not to say that I don't waste time. I do it with the best of them. I get lost on Instagram or, whatever happens, right? Sometimes we're all human. But I find just by asking that question often brings me back, and I'm like, oh, this work I'm doing right now it's going to take me an hour to do this thing. And it's not even going to matter when I could be spending that time doing this other thing over here that's going to make more of a difference and move me closer to my goals. And then the last thing I'll add is that, you mentioned you started adopting the morning routine years ago, and I did as well. That was a game changer for me, because having that quiet space in the morning before you start the day, starting the day with intention and being able to spend time thinking, especially if you have kids, right, to do this before your kids get up and they're like asking for things and you're making breakfast and going to work and all this stuff. But to have half an hour and a half of quiet space where you can be intentional, you can read, you can take out a journal, you can write down your thoughts and ideas, the most important things you want to get done that day. I've been doing that now for more than 6 years, fairly consistently, and it's made a huge, huge difference in my life.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that how you start your day sets the tone for the rest of the day. I feel like if for any reason my morning routine gets messed up, that day I'm more going, like being more reactive. I'm probably not showing up at my best. Starting my day with that morning routine, investing in myself. As you said, before my kids wake up, it's like me time.
Yeah.
Where I exercise, I journal, I plan my day. It's a game changer. And I agree with you. You need to make it a must, and you need to schedule it.
Yeah.
I think scheduling time for those things, like if your career is a priority right now, because it might not be, right? Not for everyone, your career is among your priorities.
Right.
But if you're trying to move your career forward, maybe looking for a promotion or doing something different, you need to be very intentional about making the time to make that happen, and just block time in your calendar to work on that, whatever that means, right? As you said, it might be reading a book, it might be listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, what I find out is that it becomes addictive. Like my morning routine started being a 15-minute morning routine. Now is 2 hours. And where it started with, I'm going to read 1 page of a book a day. I read, I devour books now and podcasts and all the things. It grows in you. I think it becomes addictive.
I love it. What time are you getting up, Carolina?
Right now at 5, but I used to do it at 4:30 when I was going to the office, but I'm working from home now. So I get some extra time. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. 5 a.m. I was doing 4:30 for a while. And then later for a while, I was dealing with some health issues, but then, I'm back on the 5:30 bus, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah. Yes. So one more topic I want to talk about before we close out. I want to be very respectful of your time, but you mentioned networking, and I think expanding your network is critical
Yeah.
for your career, whatever your career looks like. Like your network is one of your most valuable assets in your career. Can you expand a little bit on this concept of the importance of a network and expanding your network?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, nothing has been more impactful, important, critical for me in my own career success than having a network, than having relationships with people, so many people that have opened doors that have helped me. When I think back across my career, almost every job I've had and business opportunity, and there have been many, have come from people in my network, going all the way back to when I was 15 and my mom got me my first job. Working for the county maintenance crew was definitely nothing luxurious, but my mom had some connection and I had none, right? And got me that job. And then the next job I got was working at a pharmacy because of my best friend in high school was working there and he got me that job, right? And then the next job was another friend got me that job. And, all the way up through, I mentioned the consulting job earlier when we started, that came from a friend as well who had just started there and got me the interview. And this is something that's just so critical when you think about going out for a job or a promotion or a project role or anything that you're trying to achieve. The difference between someone referring you and getting you that job or that interview or whatever it is versus applying online or going through the official process and being one of 300 or 400 applicants or whatever it is, it's a huge difference, right? And we're not always going to know the right people that can walk us into whatever we're trying to achieve. But I find the more and more people the more likely you are to know the person that's going to find something for you and or recommend something or help you with something. And there's two parts to that. Like I'll say three really important factors. Number one is meeting as many people as possible and knowing lots of people, right? Number two is seeking ways to help those people, right? Like always looking for ways to help others first. Think about it like a friend of mine told me it was like a bank account, right? Like you want to deposit money before you take it out, right? So always look for ways to help people before you ask for help. And we talked about karma earlier and all that stuff. And then number three is be willing to ask for help or at least let people know what you're working on, because nobody can really help you if they don't know what you want or what you need, right? So like if you're looking for a new job and you're being very secretive about it and you don't tell anybody, guess what? Nobody's going to make an introduction for you because they have no idea, right? When I'm trying to achieve something or do something, I almost tell everybody what I'm doing. And it's usually, I'm not usually asking them for anything. It's just kind of like, hey, here's what I'm working on. What are you working on? And inevitably someone would be like, oh, you're doing that. Like I have this connection over here. Let me see if I can help you. Because again, going back to what we talked about earlier, we love helping each other, right? The people can't help you if they don't know what you're doing. So whatever you're working on, make sure you talk to people about it. Not in like a bragging way or an annoying way, right? But just letting people know. And I mean, that network, we talked about the importance of curiosity. You probably, maybe you can't be out there networking all the time. Like I kind of am, because that's really my business, is building relationships and talking to people. But really, if you just set your intention and say, I want to meet one or two new people a week. I just want to learn about them. I'm going to get curious. You don't even have to go outside of your company, right? Just try to get to know people in different places, different departments. Caroline, I know you started, I think, with a new company fairly recently, right? In talent management.
Yes.
Think about getting to know people in legal and IT and marketing and finance, right? And the next time you need to get that budget approval and like you've got a friend in finance, you're like, hey, what's up? You can find out about the process. Is a lot easier than going through the official thing. So, just having those connections is just so valuable. I'm just a big fan of it. And I think a lot of people know that it's important, but they shy away from it or they don't make time for it. And I'm just an advocate that that is one of those important things that you need to make time for.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love those three components that you said. I will add to that is be genuine in wanting to learn about the other person. I think you mentioned we're social creatures and we love to talk about ourselves, like as human beings, right?
That's
so
right.
I know I'm an introvert, and for me, networking was always this scary thing, right? And then when I started to see it as, you know what, people like to talk about themselves. I just need to ask them, what are they doing?
That's right.
What they're working on. And then people start talking and the conversation kind of flows. And when you're genuinely paying attention to what they're saying, like that goes so long ways.
Yeah. Just be curious and interview people. People always ask me like, oh, I'm an introvert. What do I do? First of all, extrovert introvert is really a lot more about how you manage your energy, right? And
Yes.
knowing if you're an introvert, that if you are going to be around a lot of people, you need to block in time to like spend on your own, right? So you can cool down. But if you are intimidated by this idea of like talking to a lot of people, or people feel pressure, like I've got to come with stories to entertain them, like, no, you just need to be curious, right? Ask people questions. As you mentioned, there's a famous book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It came out in the 1930s. 80 years later, it's just as true as it was then. He said that everybody's favorite word is their name and everybody's favorite subject is themselves. And it is true, right? We're thinking about ourselves all the time, and we like talking about ourselves. So like you said, just be curious and ask people questions.
Yeah. Andy, I can be talking with you for hours. This is such a great conversation. Before we close, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to connect with you. So we're going to put on the show notes of this podcast episode the link to your book and your podcast and your LinkedIn profile. But can you talk a little bit more about how people can connect with you?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So the book is called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. It's available on Amazon. If you want to just grab some free resources, I have a few on my website. One of them is the 5 steps to owning your career, to walk you through the whole process. You don't even have to read the book. I also have my morning routine on there and the top 5 most common mistakes that people make in their careers. You can get all of that by going to ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/bonus. That's ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/bonus. I have a podcast called the Own Your Career Podcast, as well as 2 others, the Talent Development Hot Seat for those who work in talent development, learning and development, and my NFT journey, which is more about NFTs and Web3, a curiosity of mine. And then I'm very active on social media. So find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I'm out there.
Yeah, make sure that you connect with Andy, that you take advantage of those free resources. And of course, that you grab a copy of the book. Is a must read. All the things that we've been talking about on this episode and much more are included on Andy's book. So go grab a copy. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I really appreciate it. I'm honored, and I appreciate you having me on.